Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island podcast. I'm Jack Kennedy,
And I'm Mace Martinez.
and this is your podcast for the latest in MMA. I'm Jack Kennedy, and they hit a lot harder, in my opinion, too.
Mace Martinez.
He put Aldo stiff in 13 seconds before Bruce Buffer could even plant his ass in his seat.
I'm Marcos Diaz.
You can't keep getting opportunities if you get hurt.
And this is the MMA Island podcast.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a great podcast lined up for you today. Real quick, before we get started, though, I have Dustin Poirier's Louisiana-style hot sauce with me. And I got it just because it's Dustin Poirier, and, why not? It's a cool thing that he made. But we actually got a second bottle and tried it the other night with some red beans and rice that we had, and it is amazing. So massive shout out to that. Highly recommend it. And of course, the UFC's very own Dustin Poirier fighting very soon. So massive shout out to that. With that, let's get into it. In this podcast, we will be going over some recent news. Obviously, we talked about Chimaev versus Edwards being called off again. The fight that's bumped up, Neil Magny versus Michael Chiesa. We will be talking about that, as well as Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler officially being put on UFC 257, the implications that has for the division. And for the new year, we will be giving you who we think will be the champion of each division by the end of 2021. With that, let's get into it. So first off, Neil Magny versus Michael Chiesa. New main event for that fight night, Wednesday, right before the Saturday pay-per-view, Poirier versus Conor McGregor. What are you thinking on this and just the fight night as a whole and this fight being bumped up?
So yeah, like we discussed, we've said once before that, or twice before now, that this isn't the fight that we wanted, but it's a pretty good substitution. Two guys in the top 10 at 170 going to go at it in the main event. Chiesa has won 3 fights in a row. He's been impressive lately. He's been beating up a lot of legends. I mean, you think Carlos Condit and then Diego Sanchez and most recently Rafael dos Anjos. So obviously the competition is going to get stiff now with Magny, who's also on a 3-fight win streak and won all those fights by unanimous decision in 2020. So he was the more active guy this year for sure. The two things that stand out to me for Magny, and not really in a negative way, but not in a positive way really either. And nearly 60% of his finishes are by decision. So he's not really consistently finishing guys. And I think for someone who's made a name for himself, but he's trying to get to that title, I think that's something he needs to start doing, and he needs to try to begin that with Chiesa, because that's something that Dana's going to want. If he expects to make that run at a title, he's going to want finishes in there. He wants excitement. So that's one thing. And then another thing is the 6 out of his 7 losses have been by stoppage. 4 by submission and 2 by TKO. So, going up against Chiesa, I mean, he's looked great. Like I said, he looks big at 170. He looks strong. 11 of his wins have come by submission. So there's 2 things you don't do with Chiesa. One of them is you don't go to the ground. If you can avoid it, you stay off the ground at all costs. The other thing is don't talk about his mom, because we've seen how that goes. Like Chiesa was, Jake from the Little Giants. That's Michael Chiesa after that press conference with Kevin Lee, man. You just don't do that. But
I just love Jason Justin clapping at the whole situation.
Right. So I think it's a great fight. Like I said, it's going to shake up the top 10 a little bit because they're both ranked inside there. But as far as the fight goes, I think Chiesa is going to get it done. I think he's just going to be a little bit too big, a little too strong, and I think he'll get it done by submission.
All right, that is an interesting prediction. I'm going to go Magny on this one. He's looked phenomenal as of late, obviously just beating Robbie Lawler. And Magny's been around for a while, too. He recently posted on his Instagram, he in between the years 2013 and 2014, he was 9-1, which is 10 fights, which all the new people now fighting a whole bunch. He was like, I was the original, like I fought a ton. So big shout out to Neil Magny. And he has been on a tear as of late. He looks the best he's looked in his career, in my opinion. He looks very well-rounded. Michael Chiesa is on a tear right now, but he also hasn't fought in a little bit. Neil Magny has been active. He's fought during the whole COVID situation, so he knows the deal. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting fight, and I am very glad that they bumped this up to a 5-round fight. Even though we want the other fight, again, this is another fight where it's a good substitute. So I'm very much looking forward to it. Michael Chiesa is very, very, very skilled on the ground, just like you said. One of the two things to look out for sure. But I just think Neil Magny is so well rounded, and he's going to be working on defending the takedown. Michael Chiesa's takedown game is not the best, and I don't think Neil Magny is going to want to get Chiesa to the ground. I think he can use his reach and keep him at bay and win on the feet. That's where I think Neil Magny is coming from. And in the clinch situation as well, that's where it's really dangerous for me for this fight for Chiesa. Because if he can dominate the clinch, then he can win the fight. But if he can't, and Neil Magny is the bigger guy, Neil Magny could take away this fight. And I think Neil Magny is working on that constantly, and I think he's going to walk away with the victory here by a decision probably. So, yeah, that's my pick. Neil Magny by a decision, early pick. Still, I think it'll be a great fight and two great fighters for this fight. So that's kind of my takeaway from that.
Nice.
All right. So next, and this is a massive fight announcement. We talked about this on the last podcast. It was just rumors then, but it is official, signed. Dan Hooker will be fighting Michael Chandler, UFC 257 in the co-main event. What are you thinking on this fight and just the implications it has for everybody at 155?
Yeah, from the get-go, I didn't think this was a matchup that was going to be made. I thought it was going to be Chandler and Gaethje for sure. As far as what it means for the division, I know Dana's meeting with Khabib out there on Fight Island, so there's always that possibility of him coming out of retirement. I'm not sure what Dana has planned or what he could have in mind, that would convince Khabib to fight again. But there's just many different scenarios. Either Khabib stays retired and vacates the belt, I would say, or he comes back. I think if he does stay retired, that the UFC is going to crown a new champion. I think that the winner of Poirier-McGregor is probably going to fight Justin Gaethje, more than likely. And then as far as the Hooker and Chandler fight goes, I don't see the winner getting an immediate title shot. I think they'll probably have to do something afterwards as well, another fight or so. I think that Oliveira deserves a title shot. So once that whole situation is figured out, I think he needs to get in there. I think he deserves it. But I'm just unsure about everything, really. This is all just my opinion. I'm really unsure about everything because there's so much talent in that division and so many people that are capable of winning the belt. You just got to wait and see how it's going to play out. But this whole situation 100% depends on Khabib and the decision that he's going to make. And then we kind of clears things up once he decides and then it moves forward. But in my opinion, he's going to stay retired. I don't think that what Dana's going to offer is going to be good enough. I don't think the McGregor rematch or Poirier rematch is going to be good enough. I don't think that that's going to get him out of retirement, even though that would be a massive fight. But yeah, as far as the fight goes, it's a good fight. I don't know who I would pick to win it yet. I think they're both great fighters, great contenders. Obviously Chandler's debut, so I'm excited to see him in there against some top level talent from the top promotion. So should be a good one. Tough test for him right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited for this fight, and I never thought this fight was actually going to happen. This was the first fight. Whenever Michael Chandler got signed to the UFC, first off, I was so excited because he's definitely UFC caliber, and I think he should have been in the UFC for a little bit. Now, Dan Hooker for me was the perfect first fight for him. I didn't think it was going to happen because Chandler is a big name and he's coming into the UFC, so I think he would want almost immediately a title contender. In my opinion, just like you said, I think this is a great fight. You win this, but it's one more, and then you get the title fight.
Right.
But Dan Hooker is really good, and he's world class. For Michael Chandler to come in from Bellator, really, I don't think he's faced the competition level that even Dan Hooker offers. I think that would be the toughest fight, really, I'm not going to say of his career because he's had a long career, but one of the toughest fights of his career right off the bat coming into the UFC. And that's the fight I wanted. That's the fight I wanted. Dan Hooker, I think he deserves one more shot. He's obviously fought the who's who of the division now. Obviously, a great fight against Dustin Poirier. He's so tough. And Michael Chandler coming in, I feel like that's the perfect matchup for him as well. You get a really tough guy, a real contender to prove who you are against. And now it's on the biggest stage as well. The McGregor Poirier card. It's on the biggest stage. Perfect fight for him. So yeah, I think this is a great matchup. As who I'm picking, I'm leaning towards Dan Hooker on this one. Michael Chandler, I think he's a great fighter, but when you're talking about Dan Hooker and the volume of strikes that he throws, and the power, he cracks people. And he's been able to finish a lot of guys, but whenever you get to the top contenders at lightweight, they just don't get finished like that. So that's the struggles he's been having. Chandler, has he taken a shot like that before? And the volume of strikes that Dan Hooker presents. The thing for me is, can Dan Hooker prevent the takedown? His takedown defense has improved massively throughout his career, but has he really faced a guy like Michael Chandler who's going to be 100% bull rushing him for a takedown? I don't think that's my big takeaway. If Hooker really, if he can defend the takedown against Michael Chandler and he has great front kicks and everything, keep him at bay and land some shots, that's gonna be a long night for Michael Chandler. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. We'll see fight week. That'll be a huge week for everybody, including us. We can't wait.
Right.
But yeah, this is just another fight, and I'm so glad they put it on this card too, just to add another fight. I haven't seen the official card for it, but this is just another fight to make it. I just can't wait. So, very excited, and I think it's the perfect first fight for Michael Chandler.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so we have a special segment for you here, and we will be doing this through the next couple of podcasts, or we'll take a break in between. But we'll go through all of the divisions in the UFC and tell you who we think will be the champion of that division by the end of the year. Let's get started. So we're going to be starting at the lowest weight class, moving up to heavyweight. So 115 pounds, the women's strawweight division. Current champion is Zhang Weili. Who are you thinking is going to be the champion of that division by the end of the year?
I feel like Weili has to be the favorite. I mean, she would be my safe bet. If I was putting money on it, it'd be her. But there's three women I think could be the champion. Obviously, one is Weili, the current champ. The other two would be Thug Rose Namajunas and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Both of those women have held the belt before. Obviously, Joanna and Weili just fought the fight of the year last year. I think Joanna could get that rematch, and I think she could take that belt. That being said, would she hold on to it the rest of 2021? I don't know. I mean, I know she's even mentioned she don't really intend to fight until fans are able to come back. So we're just going to have to see how that whole situation plays out with her. As far as Namajunas goes, she wants a title shot, and that was cleared up just recently. I think she should be next. And like I mentioned before, Jack, I think she can beat Weili as well.
Yeah.
I feel like if she beats Weili, then and her and Joanna go at it again, I feel like she has Joanna's number to a certain extent. Rose does. And obviously they know each other so much better. I mean, that would be the third time they'd face off if it does happen again. But I just don't think Joanna can get past her. But yeah, for me, it's either Weili or Rose. It's really a toss up. One of those two will be the champion throughout the year and at the end of the year, I believe. It's one of those two. But my safe bet would be Weili keeps the belt.
Yeah, I like that. I have Weili as well. I'm not too sure that Rose can beat Weili. I know I'm leaning Weili in that fight for sure. And like you said, the situation, we went over that in one of those podcasts. It did not need to be that. It's very clear what it should be. Rose versus Zhang Weili, and that's the massive fight for this division. And like you, I think that fight will determine who will be the champion at the end of the year, pending a rematch. Who knows what will happen in that fight. So I like Zhang Weili a lot. She is so powerful in that division that it's remarkable to see. I'll talk about the Rose Namajunas fight. Rose Namajunas is a fantastic fighter as well. She's looked great, but can she take the shots and the power that Weili has been able to throw? And on Weili's side too, can she create the space? Because Rose Namajunas is going to be creating distance. Yes. Fantastic matchup. I'm leaning Weili on it, but really, I'm with you. Whoever wins that, I think will be the champion. So I'm leaning Weili. like you said as well, Joanna is a fantastic fighter and everything, but Rose Namajunas seems to have her number, just like you said. Rose, really the only fighter, in my opinion, to completely not dominate. Well, yeah, dominate. Joanna, it has been Rose Namajunas. Obviously, Valentina Shevchenko won decisively, but that was a whole other weight class. I don't really count that. And Zhang Weili won, but Joanna, and they were throwing the entire time. Yeah. Rose Namajunas seems to have planned out a perfect game plan for Joanna and Jacek to where it works and she's able to execute it to perfection. So I don't think Joanna will be really in the mix at the moment. And also, like you said, she wants to wait a little bit to come back as well. So I'm going to go Zhang Weili for my 115-pound strawweight champion by the end of the year.
Yeah.
All right. Now, men's flyweight. Obviously, we are just coming off a crazy fight between Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, which was a draw. Who do you think will be the champion by the end of the year?
So for me, there's only two men that it's going to be. It's either going to be Deiveson Figueiredo, the current champ, or, just like Weili, it's hard to bet against him.
Yep.
Or the assassin baby, Brandon Moreno. Obviously, they just had the fight of the year contender as well. It came out in a draw. We're definitely going to get that fight again. Yep. And Moreno has the tools to get the job done. We've seen that. I don't see any other guys being really a threat to those guys. Like, you've got Joseph Benavidez who's hanging around in the rankings, and he's always lurking. However, he's not beating Deiveson. We've already seen them twice. He's really no match for him, and neither of those fights were competitive. I don't think he gets by Brandon Moreno either, really, if they fight. I think if Moreno can win the rematch against Deiveson, then we get a trilogy out of them too, and which would be great. I think that a third fight would happen at that point. For me, it's one of those two guys. Again, like I stuck with Weili, I'm going to stick with the champ here too. I think Figueiredo is the champ at the end of the year, throughout the year and at the end of the year.
I like that. So here's what I think will happen. And this is just me playing out what I want to happen. I think would be the craziest thing ever and be amazing for especially the flyweight division. So we're coming off that draw. The rematch will happen in a little bit. They have to take some time to recover after that fight. Then I think Moreno wins the rematch. But then I think they do the trilogy at the end of the year. I think they fight a ton like they normally do. And then at the end of the year, I think Figueiredo wins it. So I think the trilogy goes down in 2021, the greatest year in flyweight history, in my opinion. And I think Figueiredo will come out on top. But I predict a crazy year. And obviously a contender has been born in Brandon Moreno from his last fight.
Definitely.
And he's going to be sticking around for a little bit. So I cannot wait for that rematch. And that's what I'm looking forward to most in 2021. So Figueiredo, my champ.
Yeah, I agree. So you think he'll lose the belt during the year and then gain it back?
I do think so.
Regain it. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I hope that happens. I would like to see Moreno as a champion and get to see them fight 3 times.
Absolutely. And then it would also be, how does Figueiredo respond to losing the belt as well? I don't know. It's interesting. I can't wait. The rematch is going to be amazing. I can't wait for that.
Hopefully we can get fans in attendance pretty soon, man, because these fights that we've had during the pandemic with nobody in attendance, they've been insane. You can only imagine what they'd be like with the crowd and the fans going nuts. It'd be something to watch. So hopefully we can get them back in pretty soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. The last division we will be talking about for this podcast, women's 125 pounds. The great Valentina Shevchenko is the champion right now. Who do you think will be the champ at the end of the year?
This is easy for me. Shevchenko will be the champ at the end of 21. Shevchenko will be the champ as long as she damn well pleases, to be honest. In my opinion, nobody in the top 10 has what it takes to beat her. She's just too damn good. She's an assassin. Yep. She might actually be the spy that we all kid that she is. Like, she's crazy, man. She's crazy good, crazy talented. Nobody's beating her unless her name's Amanda Nunes, and she happens to be the greatest female fighter of all time. So that says a lot about Shevchenko.
Yep.
I don't see Nunes making the cut to 125 anytime soon. So Shevchenko will be the champion throughout the year. At the end of this year, she'll be the champion until she decides to no longer be the champion. There's nobody stopping her, and it's just that simple for me.
I mean, how can you disagree with that? She is on a level. Ronda Rousey was on a level whenever she was the champion, especially at the beginning. That was unlike anything you've seen. She's on a level that's greater than that. She has not shown one real weakness that I have seen, even in the Amanda Nunes fights, except for the first one. The second one, really, people could have scored that either way.
Yes.
She looks unbeatable. She's getting bored, in my opinion. And her last fight, she just fought a grappler, and she beat her by using a lot of grappling. She's mixing up everything just to make it interesting, and I love it. And she is so talented, and her striking is amazing, and obviously she has elite ground game as well. Really one of the best female fighters to ever exist. You have to give Amanda Nunes number one, especially with what she's been able to do, the champ. But wow, the fight I hope to see matched up that I think would be fantastic is Valentina Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili at 125. I think that would be a fantastic fight, and I think that would just be. I still think Shevchenko would win that, but I think that would be an interesting fight, especially with the champ heading up. That's the fantasy matchup I think that could, at least make it somewhat competitive against Shevchenko. Even then, though, 125, that division belongs to Valentina Shevchenko until, like you said, she pretty much decides to retire.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see her and Nunes go again. And obviously, the first two fights, Nunes is pulled out. Obviously, there was some doubt there in the second one, like you mentioned. Yeah. So I think they need to settle it once and for all. If Nunes can get a third win over her, then there's really no question. But Shevchenko's tough, man, and I like that idea of Wang moving up, Weili, moving up and getting that opportunity maybe. So I think if she can handle business against Rose and whatever contender she's got there, then move up and make it exciting. I would venture to say that Shevchenko is probably going to fight more outside of the 125 division this year than she will in it.
Yeah,
I think maybe she's got a title defense in this year, and if she's active, she could be moving up to 135 to challenge Nunes, for the belt. I don't think 145. I think that's out of the question a little bit. I think that's a little bit too much of a jump, but 135 for sure. And it's exciting. Women's martial arts is exciting right now in all weight classes. So, but yeah, as far as champ in the flyweight division, that's Shevchenko all day long.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, I like that Nunes idea too. That's always a fight that's open. Yeah, absolutely. I think some champ stuff needs to happen in between those 115, 135, 125 need to all mix up. So yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. That way they can face each other because they're so dominant. There's no competition really in their divisions. Yeah. So Nunes is beating everybody. I know she's got Megan Anderson next coming up. With all due respect to Megan, I love Megan Anderson. I don't think she's getting the job done against Nunes. I really don't. So yeah, rematches are fixing to be had.
I mean,
and
look at all the odds for these fights. Like the odds for every single championship women's fight, especially in their own division, it's ridiculous. It's unlike anything you've ever seen. Every single one. That's the only logical, and that's the most exciting thing, and that would sell. Mix them up. Let's see what happens. Absolutely.
I think the champion with the most competition is Zhang Weili. Yeah, I think with Doug Rose and with Joanna there, and even Carla Esparza. I mean, you can throw her in there, I guess. There's some competition there for that champion. Yeah. As far as Shevchenko goes and Nunes goes, there's really no competition but themselves. And I think we've talked about that before. No one's really going to threaten to take their belt unless it's each other threatening it. So, definitely some room to make things happen in those divisions.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for this podcast. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Again, you can like and subscribe here, please. Listen on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you can listen to a podcast. We are there. Check us out on our Instagram at MMA Island and on our website, MMAisland.net. Thank you guys again so much for listening, and great podcast, Mace.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.